Imagine rubbing this simple targeted lotion right on your arm and then stepping into an MRI machine.
Right.
And 20 minutes later, you watch your brain literally light up on the scan. I mean, it sounds like absolute science fiction,
Pretty
right?
totally. Yeah.
But today, we're actually looking at the exact medical case study where an 80-year-old neurosurgeon did just that.
Yeah.
And, it completely shatters this expectation we all have about aging.
It really does.
Like, the narrative. It's supposed to be this inevitable linear decline. The miles tick up, the parts wear out, and we just kind of accept that the human vehicle is going to slow down.
Yeah, we treat it as like a biological given. But when you actually look at the frontiers of clinical research, you realize that old metaphor is completely obsolete.
Right.
Aging isn't just this slow march toward fatigue. If you understand the underlying mechanisms, well, you can actually intervene. And the goal for you, the listener, as we go through all of this material today, is to avoid information overload. We aren't going to just throw a random list of supplements at you.
No, definitely not.
We're going to connect the biological dots between your cognitive health, your metabolism, and your nervous system just to show you how they act as one single engine.
Because the mission today isn't just about, adding a few extra years to the end of your life. It is about adding absolute peak performance to the years you are living right now.
Absolutely.
We have a massive stack of research, expert protocols, and clinical case studies to get through.
Okay.
Let's unpack this, because true longevity requires optimizing these interconnected systems.
From the top down.
Exactly. Starting from your brain's cellular immune system all the way down to the actual literal millimeter width of your airway.
Yeah.
So let's start at the command center, the brain.
Right.
Specifically the microglia.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that we've historically thought of the brain as this isolated fortress, right?
Like it's completely walled off by the blood-brain barrier.
Exactly. But it actually has its own resident immune cells called the microglia, and they constantly patrol your brain tissue.
And from the research, these microglia basically exist in like two different states. If your brain is healthy, they sit in this supportive M2 state. I like to think of them as these incredibly diligent little gardeners.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. They're constantly nurturing your neurons, trimming the synaptic hedges, clearing out the cellular waste, just keeping the garden of your mind beautiful and functional.
And this is the big but, if they get exposed to systemic inflammation or high uric acid.
Which we get from like consuming massive amounts of hidden liquid fructose, right?
Exactly, yeah. Or if they're exposed to mitochondrial toxins, they basically flip a switch. They turn into this M1 zombie state.
Wow. Zombie state.
Yeah, and instead of tending the garden, these zombie microglia literally start eating the plants.
Oh, man.
They destroy your synapses, which triggers this massive feed-forward loop of neuroinflammation.
And if we want to talk about what flips that switch from gardener to zombie, one of the most potent hidden triggers is elevated homocysteine.
Right, homocysteine.
It's an amino acid found in your blood, and at high levels, it acts as a severe mitochondrial toxin. And here is where your unique genetics come into play.
Oh, this is huge.
Because over 28% of the population carries a variant of a gene called MTHFR. And this variant severely limits your body's ability to process standard, off-the-shelf B vitamins.
But wait, before we move on, what actually is methylation? The research keeps mentioning that if you have this gene, your body can't methylate vitamins.
Right.
Is it like a biological processing plant or something?
That is a great way to picture it, actually. Methylation is essentially the body's way of adding a tiny chemical key to a molecule so your cells can unlock it and actually use it.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you have the MTHFR variant, your processing plant is broken. You can swallow all the standard B vitamin supplements you want, but your cells can't unlock them.
Right, they just pass right through.
Exactly. And because your body is starved of usable B vitamins, your homocysteine levels skyrocket, and your risk for Alzheimer's disease and severe cognitive decline drastically increases.
That is a huge portion of the population just walking around with this invisible ticking risk factor.
Yeah, over a quarter of people.
And there is a perfect example of this in the stack. Dr. David Perlmutter. He's a renowned neurologist, and he actually discovered he carries this exact MTHFR variant.
Oh, wow.
But he doesn't just accept cognitive decline as his inevitable fate.
Right.
He bypasses the broken processing plant by taking pre-methylated B vitamins, specifically B12, methylfolate, and B6.
Because the chemical key is already attached in the supplement itself.
Exactly. His body can use them instantly. He keeps his homocysteine at a tightly optimized 8.2. He's protecting his cognitive health so well that he is currently writing his 16th book at age 71.
That is incredible,
Yeah.
which highlights a crucial takeaway for you listening. You need to track your fasting insulin, your uric acid, and your homocysteine.
Yes, absolutely.
But you cannot just look for normal laboratory averages on your blood panel, because normal in today's society just means chronically sick.
Right. You want to aim for strict optimal ranges. Short-term, managing this prevents the afternoon brain fog and metabolic mayhem.
And long-term.
Long-term, you're directly arresting the root causes of neurodegenerative conditions.
Okay, so we figure out how to stop the zombies from destroying the garden. But how do we actually grow new plants? Because the brain doesn't just expand in a vacuum.
No, it requires immense targeted physical output to trigger that growth.
Which brings us to the Norwegian 4x4 protocol from Dr. Tommy Wood. It's a cardio protocol. Basically, you do 4 minutes of all-out high-intensity cardio, followed by 3 minutes of active rest.
And you repeat that for 4 total rounds.
Right, 3 times a week.
It is arguably the most effective physical intervention for brain health we currently know of.
But I have to ask, why this specific agonizing routine? I mean, why not just a nice, enjoyable 30-minute daily jog with the dog? Isn't cardio just cardio?
Yeah, it's a logical question, but the neurobiology says no.
Really?
A light jog is fantastic for general cardiovascular health and your mood, but the 4x4 protocol is designed to force your body to its absolute VO2 max.
Okay.
Hitting that specific maximum oxygen uptake creates a profound acute stressor. Your body registers that massive oxygen debt, and its survival response is to flood your system with something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
The brain fertilizer.
Precisely. BDNF acts as a powerful biological fertilizer that stimulates actual neuroanatomical volume changes.
We're talking about physically growing the tissue size of the hippocampus, right?
Yeah.
Which is the memory consolidation center of the brain.
Exactly. And the clinical data shows that if you complete this Norwegian 4x4 protocol 3 times a week for just 5 to 6 months, you yield volumetric increases in the hippocampus that can last for up to 5 years.
5 years from 6 months of work. That's insane.
You're building a structural fortress against dementia while dramatically boosting your everyday energy levels right now.
And the beauty is, you don't have to destroy your knees or run wind sprints on concrete to do it.
Nope.
Like podcaster Tim Ferriss uses this exact protocol, but he does it on an upright stationary bike like a Kaiser M3i. By using the resistance on the bike, he hits those massive VO2 max targets, gets the BDNF release, and secures those 5-year cognitive dividends without wrecking his lower back.
Which is brilliant for longevity. But to perform high-intensity cardio like that, your body needs serious metabolic fuel and structural integrity.
It definitely does.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you physically cannot generate the wattage required to hit your VO2 max if your underlying muscle hardware is degrading. To fix the brain, we really have to fuel the muscle.
Which introduces the highly controversial topic of protein.
Yeah.
We looked at the clinical protocols from Dr. Gabrielle Leon and Dr. Karen Sokhtev.
Right.
Their target. Eating 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of your target body weight every single day, front-loaded at breakfast.
And the reason for that specific threshold comes down to a phenomenon called anabolic resistance.
Okay, what is that?
Well, when you're 20 years old, you can eat a tiny bit of protein, look at a dumbbell, and your body easily builds muscle. But as you age, your muscles essentially become hard of hearing.
Oh, interesting.
They need a much, much louder signal from a specific amino acid called leucine to switch on a cellular pathway called mTORC1. And that pathway is the master switch for building and maintaining muscle tissue.
And this is where the massive controversy is. Because in a lot of cutting-edge longevity circles, you hear experts saying you should actively restrict protein to starve the mTOR pathway.
Yeah.
Because the theory is that suppressing mTOR slows down cellular aging.
Yeah, that's a very loud prevailing narrative right now. But we have to distinguish between mTORC1, which builds muscle, and mTORC2.
Right.
Chronic suppression of the mTOR pathways to chase longevity actually backfires horribly. It causes severe insulin resistance and drastically weakens your immune system.
Wow. So it's doing more harm than good.
Exactly. A massive analysis of 32 different studies covering over 700,000 people found that higher total protein intake is undeniably associated with lower all-cause mortality.
700,000 people. That's a huge data set.
It is. On the flip side, sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, roughly doubles your risk of death. And if that muscle loss leads to physical frailty, your mortality risk leaps to 3.5 times higher.
That's terrifying.
You simply cannot survive a fall or a severe illness if you've stripped off your muscle armor.
Okay, I understand the need for 1.6 grams of protein, but practically speaking, when people actually try to execute this, say they chug an 80-gram whey protein shake to hit their macros, it completely ruins their digestion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've read about people experiencing severe bloating and incredibly foul-smelling flatulence. Is this just like a necessary, uncomfortable evil of longevity?
Not at all. Dr. Sakdev addresses this directly clinically. It's called proteolytic fermentation.
Which just means protein rotting in your gut, right?
Essentially, yes. Your digestive system was just overwhelmed and couldn't absorb that massive hit all at once. Think of your gut bacteria like a room full of energetic toddlers.
Okay, toddlers.
If you just hand them a massive, dense block of pure protein, they don't know what to do with it. They throw a tantrum, the environment turns toxic, and the protein ferments.
Yikes.
But the fix is incredibly simple. You split the protein into smaller meals, and you always pair it with fiber and polyphenols, things like a handful of berries or pomegranate seeds.
Handing the toddlers some toys to play with.
Precisely. You distract the gut bacteria. They vastly prefer to ferment the fiber, so they enthusiastically go to work on that instead of putrefying the protein.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, the bloating and brain fog completely resolve, and your body quietly absorbs the amino acids it needs to flip that mTORC1 switch.
Okay, so we're building muscle, we're growing the hippocampus with our cardio, we're protecting the brain's garden.
Right.
But all of that physical growth and cellular repair only happens when we sleep. And what if a structural flaw in your literal face is suffocating you every single night?
This is perhaps the most underdiagnosed epidemic in modern health.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because how can someone be young, incredibly fit, eating the perfect diet, doing the 4x4 cardio, and still wake up feeling completely exhausted all the time?
It happens so often.
We dug into the concept of upper airway resistance syndrome, or UARS. If you have chronic fatigue, unrefreshing sleep, or you wake up with a sore jaw from grinding your teeth, standard sleep apnea tests might completely miss the root cause.
Because there is a leading longevity physician who spent 10 years battling exactly this kind of unexplainable chronic fatigue. His name is Dr. Oliver Zollman.
Right.
Standard doctors missed his condition entirely because he didn't fit the classic sleep apnea profile. He wasn't overweight, he didn't snore loudly.
He was a fit guy.
Exactly. But he finally sought out a cone beam computed tomography scan, a CBCT scan.
And how does that differ from a normal X-ray?
Well, a standard X-ray is two-dimensional. A CBCT scan takes hundreds of images and builds a flawless 3D cone-shaped map of your entire skull and respiratory tract.
Oh, wow.
It measures the absolute minimal cross-sectional area of your airway down to the millimeter.
And when Dr. Zollman got his 3D map, it showed his airway was shockingly small, like 3 times smaller than a normal airway.
Yep.
It's a structural condition called transverse maxillary deficiency. Basically, the roof of his mouth, his palate, was so narrow that there was literally nowhere for his tongue to go.
Nowhere at all.
So the moment he relaxed into deep sleep, his tongue fell back and his airway just collapsed.
And when that airway collapses even slightly, you experience micro-awakenings. This doesn't register on a standard AHI sleep apnea score, by the way. It's measured by your RDI, your respiratory disturbance index.
Because you aren't completely stopping breathing, but you're struggling.
Exactly, because you're essentially suffocating. Your nervous system panics. It spikes adrenaline and cortisol just enough to wake your brain up to take a breath hundreds of times a night.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You never fully wake up, but your nervous system remains trapped in a sympathetic fight-or-flight panic state all night long. You completely bypass the deep restorative sleep required to clear out those brain toxins.
So what did Dr. Zollman do? Because he didn't just resign himself to wearing a CPAP machine for the next 60 years.
No, he didn't.
He used a non-surgical bone expansion procedure called MRPE. It literally stimulates the sutures in the roof of the mouth to grow new bone, permanently widening the palate and opening the airway.
It's incredible technology.
The clinical studies show that a MRPE procedure can reduce those airway disturbance scores by 66%. It eliminates the root cause of the fatigue, stops the nighttime teeth grinding, and radically decreases the long-term risk of cardiovascular disease driven by chronic oxygen deprivation.
But, and this is a big but, fixing the structural airway is only half the battle.
Right.
Because even if you have a wide-open airway and perfect oxygenation at night, daytime chronic stress will still completely destroy your cellular health.
Which introduces the concept of nervous system sovereignty, becoming an emotional athlete.
I love that term.
We looked at the case study of Salim Najjar. He was running a highly stressful beverage startup, raising venture capital, just managing absolute chaos.
Sounds super stressful.
Yeah, yet he managed to raise his heart rate variability, his HRV, from a dangerously low exhaustion score of 30 up to over 170.
Wow.
And a high HRV means your nervous system is incredibly resilient and adaptable.
Yeah.
But wait, I have to push back on this.
Okay.
He ran a startup. He was actively raising capital. He clearly didn't just pack up and move to a Zen monastery to avoid stress. So how did his HRV go up so drastically while he was in the trenches?
That's the secret. Because he stopped trying to eliminate stress and started managing the biological recovery from stress.
Recovery.
Science has clearly proven that unremitting stress causes systemic cellular inflammation. When you're stressed, your body mechanically diverts vital oxygenated blood away from your visceral organs, like your digestive tract, your reproductive system, and pushes it out to your extremities to prepare you to fight or flee.
Right, survival mode.
Exactly. Salim Najjar achieved his massive HRV through hormetic stress cycles. Instead of waiting until midnight to try and recover from a brutal 14-hour workday, he used deliberate parasympathetic resets right in the middle of his day.
So what does that actually look like in practice?
It looks like stepping away at 2 p.m. for a 20-minute power nap using binaural beats, or a guided session of non-sleep deep rest, also known as NSDR.
Okay, NSDR.
By intentionally shifting his brain out of that sympathetic state via breath work during the workday, he signaled his biology that it was safe.
And then the blood returns.
The blood returned to his visceral organs, maintaining internal homeostasis. Doing this routinely keeps your prefrontal cortex online during high-stakes meetings, completely preventing those automatic, regretful emotional reactions.
That is an incredible tool, just forcing the nervous system to hit the reset button mid-chaos.
Totally.
But, while a 20-minute binaural beat track is an amazing modern biohack, human evolution actually provided us with a much older built-in parasympathetic trigger.
Community.
Community is everything. A massive meta-analysis from Brigham Young University looked at 148 studies covering over 300,000 participants.
That is a lot of data.
And they found that healthy social bonds are the #1 determinant of human longevity, the single highest correlative factor for an extended lifespan.
That is wild.
It mathematically outperforms beating obesity, quitting smoking, and even daily exercise.
I mean, that sounds almost poetic until you look at the hardcore physiology behind it. Eating in close proximity to loved ones triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone.
Exactly, and the mechanism here is crucial. Oxytocin doesn't just make you feel warm and fuzzy. It physically neutralizes cortisol on a cellular level.
It forces your autonomic nervous system out of fight or flight and locks it into that parasympathetic rest and digest state. When you eat in that state, your body actually produces the necessary gastric juices, dramatically improving food assimilation and bowel motility.
Wait a second. I'm just putting this together.
Yeah.
If oxytocin fundamentally dictates our rest and digest state, and we're all eating lunch alone at our desks, stressed out, doom scrolling on our phones, our bodies literally aren't producing the digestive enzymes we need to break down our food.
Bingo.
We are treating a nervous system problem with expensive probiotics.
That is exactly what is happening. You cannot assimilate nutrients in a sympathetic state. This is why we looked at the protocol from nutritionist Shawn Stevenson.
Oh, the family dinners?
Right. He established a minimum effective dose of family dinners. Just having 3 device-free meals a week with family radically lowers the risk of childhood obesity and disordered eating in kids.
Just 3 meals.
But Stevenson deliberately crafted a microculture at his dinner table. He literally passes around a physical microphone after eating so his family can have rap battles or debate movies or just tell jokes.
I absolutely love that. It cultivates this environment of deep emotional safety. It improves vagal tone, and it subconsciously teaches his children how to regulate their nervous systems while they are digesting their food.
It's profoundly functional medicine. So if we look at the whole picture, we've protected the brain's immune system with methylated B vitamins.
Check.
We've grown the hippocampus with the 4x4 cardio, fed the muscle with leucine, mechanically expanded the airway, and regulated the nervous system through midday stress cycles and social connection.
So what does this all mean? It means that once the macro systems are optimized, we can finally zoom in.
Yes, down to the cells.
We can upgrade the microscopic engines of the cells themselves using targeted advanced supplementation. Specifically, we're looking at topical glutathione and urolithin A. Let's start with glutathione.
The master antioxidant.
Exactly. It's the body's master antioxidant. But the glaring problem with standard oral glutathione pills, or even those expensive IV drips, is that they break down into base amino acids in the gut and the bloodstream.
They do.
They completely fail to raise intracellular glutathione levels.
Which is why Dr. Nayan Patel advocates swapping oral pills for a specialized topical glutathione spray applied directly to the skin of the abdomen.
Why the skin?
The topical application bypasses the liver entirely. It absorbs and enters the cells directly to quench reactive oxygen species, or ROS.
Okay.
Clinical university testing has actually proven that this topical application demonstrably lowers MDA markers, which are a specific byproduct of cellular oxidative stress, within just 1 hour of application.
1 hour. That's incredibly fast. And this brings us right back to the case study from the very beginning of our deep dive. Dr. Joe Maroon, the 80-plus-year-old neurosurgeon and Ironman athlete.
Right, the MRI.
He took this topical glutathione, rubbed it on his arm, went straight into the MRI, and within 20 minutes, his brain lit up on the scan. It delivered radical cognitive clarity because the antioxidant actually crossed into the cells where it was needed.
And while a glutathione clears out the toxic oxidative exhaust, we also have urolithin A.
Right.
This is a postbiotic compound originally derived from pomegranates.
But what is the actual mechanism? Like, how does it upgrade the cell?
Well, when mitochondria get old, they don't just quietly stop working, they become senescent.
Zombie mode again.
Sort of, yeah. They start leaking toxic exhaust into the cell. Urolithin A triggers a process called mitophagy.
Mitophagy.
Think of mitophagy like sending a highly efficient demolition crew into the cell. It targets these old, polluting mitochondrial factories, dismantles them, and uses their spare parts to build brand new, clean-burning energy engines.
Oh, wow. So it's recycling them.
Exactly. In a 2022 study, older, completely sedentary adults who were given 1,000 milligrams of urolithin A saw a 12% improvement in muscle endurance.
Sedentary adults.
Yep. And an increased VO2 max within 4 months, simply because their cellular engines were rebuilt.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today, so let's do a rapid-fire recap so you can actually put this into practice.
That's good.
Test your blood for optimal homocysteine to protect your microglia. Do your 4x4 high-intensity cardio to force that hippocampus to grow.
Hit your daily leucine protein threshold.
But pair it with fiber so the gut toddlers don't throw a tantrum.
Exactly.
If you are chronically fatigued despite doing everything right, get a CBCT scan and check the structural millimeter size of your airway.
Practice daily parasympathetic resets like NSDR to manage your stress.
Have a device-free dinner with your loved ones to trigger oxytocin. And, consider targeted cellular upgrades like topical glutathione and urolithin A.
This raises an important question, especially when you look at all of these interconnected biological systems together.
What's that?
We discovered today that social connection dictates how well we digest our food, and that feeding our gut bacteria fiber stops protein from putrefying in our stomachs.
Right.
If we are obsessively fixing our diets, but our modern culture is still isolating us, stressing us out, and keeping our airways restricted at night, are we just pouring premium fuel into a vehicle with a broken engine?
Man, that is a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying thought. Are we blaming the food when the nervous system itself is just starved of oxygen and connection?
It really makes you think.
That is definitely something for you to mull over during your next meal. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great.
We strongly encourage you to take just one small action today based on what you learned. Plan a device-free dinner tonight to get that oxytocin flowing, or schedule a VO2 max workout for tomorrow.
Just do one thing.
Because remember, we aren't just trying to slow down an old ticking clock. We are actively upgrading a complex, interconnected system to achieve absolute peak performance. Until next time.